it would be a quicker answer if I were to address what is right in Kosovo right now. Going back to first liberation and then independence, I think with independence, after sort of pushing UNMIK out of the picture, which was a very difficult time, I think, for Kosovars, the EU came in, and with it the big question of standards and how are we going to write the Constitution. And I blame the international community for a lot of the problems that have developed. I think people came in from Brussels and from the capitals of Europe, and they imposed standards on Kosovo that they don't impose on their own countries. The Constitution is a good example in which it gives very, very strong rights to minorities. Again, if you go to the other capitals of Europe and ask them, what sort of rights do you give to the minorities? They sort of say, oh, no, everyone's equal here. But in Kosovo, and I have no problem with protecting minorities, but not at the expense of causing problems for the majority. And to answer, again, the sort of question of what's going wrong, I feel that the people that came into politics in the aftermath of independence, presidents, prime ministers, they tended, obviously there are many people in the government who are good people working to promote Kosovo's growth and health, but I'm afraid the leadership, in my opinion, has mostly come in for other purposes, either to have the power of office or to earn a little money or to protect themselves and their families and their clan, whatever. So I think the political class that you have in Kosovo today has to be changed. They have to turn things over to younger, more talented, more honest people. And I have a lot to say about the present situation. Political class combined with the international community. People come in for 1 year, 2 years, short contracts, longer contracts, to mentor the people as to how to run a modern state. And I'm afraid that the international community also falls into this pattern of, again, many good people, well-intentioned, but they come in not knowing the recent history of Kosovo. They don't know much about what happened at a place like Račak. They don't know what happened in last few days ago. I went to visit Krusha, and another massacre even bigger than Račak. No one knows about it. No one knows about it. And so the internationals come in and say, oh, you've got to do this or that. Usually, again, with good intentions, some not with good intentions. And I think it causes problems that people who don't know the recent history, don't know what the Kosovar people suffered under Slobodan Milosevic and have suffered under the subsequent governments in Belgrade. I think it's time the international community started looking inward at itself to see, are we really doing the right thing here? Why I think the Western powers, or the good guys, as you might say, don't seem to pay as much attention as they should to the present leadership. They let them do things that I really think are quite despicable. And why, I think, is it's got to do with the international community looking at the Balkans, thinking that the Balkans is always about to explode. They are ready to sacrifice human rights, democracy for stability. Let's not have anything that sort of causes the pond to start waving. In other words, Serbia is bigger than Kosovo. Serbia has had long relationships with France and with some other countries in the West. Serbia has the reputation of the World War II and Tito and the fighters in the hills against the Nazis. I'm afraid there's that romantic view of Serbia, and not many people really understand what has happened in the last 30, 40 years. What Slobodan Milosevic and his security forces did in Kosovo really was outrageous, and I think horrific. And I think if the capitals of Europe really understood how bad they were, and some of the successor ministers and such in Belgrade, they would pay more attention to Kosovo, and they would not insist on a negotiation process in which Kosovo is losing. I mean, they're not getting their share of peace. You know, what Belgrade is doing in the north, Mitrovica to the north, you know, is quite obvious. They're trying to destabilize that part of the country, using, you know, Serbs who live there, who should think of themselves as Kosovars who happen to be Serb, or Ashkali, or Roma, or whatever they are. And instead, the Serbs that live in the north are sort of being played on by Belgrade. Before I went to Kosovo, I served as head of the UN mission in Croatia. And I saw how Milosevic played with the Serbs in Croatia. Oh, we'll protect you, we'll do everything. But when the Croatian army really started moving against them, he didn't want several 100,000 Serbs to come into a country that had high unemployment, that had all sorts of problems. But he told them he was going to protect them. And it's the same, I think, in northern Kosovo. You know, not Milosevic, but his successors saying, well, don't worry, we're going to take care of you, you know, if you get... And you know, I talk about the parliament a lot. As I say, the Constitution gives them 20 reserved seats out of all proportion to their percentage of the population. And within those 20 seats, you know, there are a number of those minority types who do not want Kosovo to prosper, who do not want Kosovo to get better. And so they have the veto power over changes of the Constitution, this sort of thing. So I'm afraid the international community pushed down the throats of willing politicians like our the present government. You know, you have to talk to the Serbs, you have to do this, you have to do that. I really, from the beginning, I was saying, from 2000, I was saying, okay, they need mentoring, they need people to come in, they need assistance of all sorts, but listen to the Kosovars. They know what they can do, what they can't do. They know how to create something much better than people in Brussels can design for them. The Trump administration, starting as we speak, obviously there's a lot of concerns, not the least of which is his supposed relationship with Putin and with Russia, and then Russia's relationship with Belgrade, and then Russia's recent intrusions into the Crimea and to eastern Ukraine. I think that should worry the people of the Balkans. Now, I think people in other parts of the world are also worried or concerned, but at this point we really don't know. Let me tell you about why I think the diaspora is part of, not a solution, but maybe making things better in Kosovo. I know a lot of people in the American diaspora. I've gone to Canada. I'm talking to some here in the Swiss, which I understand is one of the biggest. I'm going to Austria tomorrow to talk there. Here's my proposal. In my opinion, in my calculation, 50% of the people born in Kosovo who are still alive, who are walking around, whether in Kosovo or outside, 50% live outside. They supply a lot of foreign exchange. They send 100 euros this month and 200 the next month to their families, which is great. The families consume most of it. You know, they live, they pay their bills, they go out occasionally to eat, or they buy food, they consume it. So something like 30 to 40% of the foreign exchange that comes into Kosovo comes in from the diaspora. I would think that the government would grant some decision-making to the diasporas somehow. They have very little in terms of decisions as to how that money is spent. And again, it's because it's gone to families and friends and it's spent in consumption. On the political side, the diaspora has no impact, no influence, no pressure. I've been to many meetings, conferences. 6 weeks ago in New York, I heard Eddie Rama from, not Eddie Rama, the president of Albania, not Hashim Thaci, Isa Mustafa, you know, talking to the diaspora. You know, we want you to come and invest. We need your help. I believe it's all false. I believe it's all political. I believe, and everyone I talk to in the diaspora who has gone back to try to invest, who has gone back to, on this word that they want you, they are not received. They are not well treated. The government is suspicious of them, or maybe afraid of them. I don't know what it is. So, what do I propose? I propose that somehow the Constitution has to be changed. I know I am told, oh, it's in the Constitution, you can't change it. A Constitution is a living document. It's not the Bible. It's not the Quran. It's not the Word of God. It's the word of Brussels, or it's the word of wherever the Constitution came from. We change the American Constitution carefully, but we do change it. Some countries change their Constitution every couple of years. So there must be some way to get out of the present Constitution, in which I said the minorities have a power beyond their numbers, beyond the need to protect them, beyond the need to really make life better for them. It's not making life better for them. It's encouraging them to do things that are not good for Kosovo. So what is my idea? I've set up a foundation. I've set up a foundation based in Washington. I am the director, I guess. I have a very close Kosovar friend on it who's shown that he would sacrifice almost his life for Kosovo. One of my sons is on it, who's very interested in what I do in Kosovo, and I'm going to attract other leaders. And the foundation is going to try to unify the diaspora. One of the major problems I see with dealing with Albanians is coming together is difficult. The divisions in Kosovo, the number of political parties, the number of institutions that argue one with the other. It's very difficult to unite people in Kosovo. Some tell me this is a failing of Albanianism or something like that. It's not. But there are major divisions within Kosovo. There are equal divisions within the diaspora, which is too bad. Do I think all Kosovars can come together? No. But I think a sizable portion of the diaspora is as sick and tired with the situation in Kosovo as I am. Probably more so. They talk about their families, they talk about the conditions there, unemployment among the youth. I mean, it's horrible. I was very involved with the American University in Kosovo. We graduate 250 very well-educated young people to work in Kosovo, was our plan. Most of them, as soon as they graduate, go to the diasporas. And I don't blame them. In Kosovo, there's little employment opportunity. So, change the Constitution. Somehow get a voice for the diaspora within the parliament. If, as I say, 50% of all people born in Kosovo live in the diaspora, and they send all that money in, they really should have a voice in the decision-making process. And right now they have none. So either reserve seats or somehow political parties can put people from the diaspora on their list. Some way you could bring that about. The other thing, and these are just two ideas, there are others that would come later, sort of the Trump approach to telling you what we're going to do. The second idea is if the diaspora had better access to voting. Right now I understand you have the vote, but in the last election 3,000 people worldwide actually voted. That's nothing. But if there were some way to make the voting simple, you know, and encouraged, I think you would find a very different party arrangement within Kosovo very quickly. The last time the diaspora was pulling together was during the war, obviously. There were a lot of contributions from, you know, there are many members of the diaspora here and in the United States, Canada, elsewhere, who have succeeded very well. You give a Albanian Kosovar the opportunity, and a good number have made good money, and many of them were very generous during the war. But how to motivate them today is a different story. And that's what I'm testing the waters for. I'm trying to find out, is there enough dissatisfaction or disillusionment or some of the terms you used within the diaspora, which I think there is, how you turn that into saying, okay, the only way things can be changed in Kosovo, in my opinion, is if you can pull closer together. And that would not only have an effect of making things different in Kosovo, it would make things different in the home countries. I don't know about Switzerland. Yeah, I know you've got a huge diaspora. In New York, there's a huge Albanian Kosovar diaspora. And if they were united, which they are not, they could have an influence on decisions made in the United States about Kosovo, which, you know, is sort of a 2-for-1. But again, your question is a good one. How do you get to motivate them, stand up? I have obviously talked to some leaders in the States. I went to Canada a couple of weeks ago, and everybody agrees with what I'm saying, totally. Last night in Zurich, I'm sorry, in Zurich, you know, I had a room full of Kosovar Albanians, a lot of disagreements, but at the end, everybody that came up to me, mostly to have their pictures taken with me, said, you know, no, we agree 100%, you know, what can we do? And now I've got to come up with what can we do. The changes that I'm talking about, the vote, representation in the parliament, a voice in decision-making, those are things that have to be done in Kosovo right now. But if enough people see that that has to be done, you know, I don't like to make it on a personal basis, but, you know, Hashim Thaci and Isa Mustafa, they, for one reason or another, they have put in place the controls, the system that no one in Kosovo can stand up and say, you know, throw them out or anything like that. I understand that. So that's why I think, and in the diaspora, again, if one person stands up and says, I think we should do it this way, everybody else throws stones at them. So my thought was, and I've been very encouraged last week in Kosovo, also in Macedonia, and I'm talking about the Albanian diaspora as a whole, not just Kosovo. But Kosovo could be the test case. It's more manageable. It's not as complicated as Albania, which goes back years and years and years, or Macedonia, where it's a minority of Albanians. In the diaspora, if they could really come together in terms of Kosovo and see if we can make some changes there, we could maybe show that it could be done elsewhere. I actually talked to a number of your political leaders who told me that they also are disgusted with the present president and prime minister and ministers, and they don't really see how they can make things change as a party or even as a coalition of parties. I think you're right. I think they too fear the diaspora, but and this might sound a little silly, but I talked to leaders of 2 or 3 of the parties, and as I say, there were many parties in Kosovo. 2 or 3 of them, I said, okay, you tell me you agree, give me your BESA, and then I'll start believing you, not completely, but partially. I will beat you over the head with your BESA if you ever break away. I know a couple of other countries that I'm involved with, not like in Kosovo, where I really feel committed to really helping. In El Salvador, where I served as ambassador, it's a similar sized country with many of the same problems, with sort of a negative image in the outside world. And there the remittances are even greater percentage of the national income. And slowly the government there over the years has seen this money coming in, and they've tried in many ways to control it and get some for themselves. I've known a couple of international financier types who have also seen this money and said, well, we should bring it together and then we can, but really they want to bring it together and then grab some of it. How to transform the remittances coming in into something that would cause the government to realize that the diaspora is not just a golden cow in which you milk it for the money but don't come in with suggestions as to how to use it. I would think the diaspora would wake up at some point and say, we do send our money in there and we do it for our families, we do it for personal reasons, but it's helping the government stay in power. Who was it that said, I talked to someone there and said, oh, we should, bar the money from coming in, and the government would wake up then. Yeah, but you'd also hurt the people you care about, so I don't think that's the solution. I think we could find something. I think we could find something. Should the diasporas in these different countries try to bring influence on the country in which they reside? My answer is obviously, but you can't do it if you're divided and one person goes to the Swiss government and another one says don't trust him, her. That's a problem. But that's exactly why I think the diaspora can have a 2-for-1 benefit by coming together, influencing what's going on in Kosovo, and influencing what's going on in the countries in which they reside. In New York State, Kosovar Albanians in general, they're starting to elect councilmen and members of Congress eventually. Politicians pay a lot of respect in New York, at least, to this huge group of people. Not all of them are voters, but every year there's more and more. I do think the diaspora could have effects both in the sending country and in the receiving country. You haven't asked me exactly what I think my role is. And it's egotistical, I admit, but I am told by so many Kosovar Albanians and in Macedonia, Walker, we're not going to follow this guy, we're not going to follow that guy. We like that woman, but she can't do it. there's enough respect within the Albanian community in the world for William Walker. I mean, I haven't made any money out of Kosovo. I haven't, well, I've said some bad things about some things going on there, but most people believe, and it's nice because it's true, not as a leader, not as a Führer, but sort of as an umbrella to bring together some of the leaders, the parties in Kosovo, that sort of thing. In New York, when I first went back from Kosovo, I was invited to join a thing called NAC, North American Albanian something or other. I was made an honorary member of the directorate. Every time I'd go in, they were yelling at each other and throwing things in, and it finally dissolved a couple of years ago. Vatra is a different organization. It's got divisions between people who came out of Albania under Enver Hoxha and those who came out afterwards, who the first group thinks are communists. So the established groups, and again, many good people, but they can't seem to pull together yet. I'd like to give it a try.